on Mackey and Judd. A Juddless Mackey and Judd as he recovers from his emergency appendectomy. Let's talk about the Twins here, Dex.
Okay.
I'm going to use my first statement to shine a light on something interesting that happened this weekend. If you weren't paying close attention to one of the worst records in the American League and what their front office did,
Okay.
you probably wouldn't have even thought twice about this. But my statement is, if the Twins can't make the playoffs this year in the worst division with an expanded playoff field, I would take a look under the hood if I'm the Pohlads, because there are options out there. Did you see who got fired this weekend?
I do not know off the top of my head.
16 years ago, the Texas Rangers hired the youngest general manager in the history of baseball, 28-year-old John Daniels at the time. And so he has presided. Now, the last 4 years have been really rough for the Rangers. So I'm not even saying that, like, it wasn't time for a change. Maybe it was. But he presided over the best stretch of baseball in Rangers history. 5 playoff trips in 7 years, 2 trips to the World Series. In fact, if Nelson Cruz didn't bungle a play in the outfield, they probably have a World Series win for the first time in franchise history. He's only 44 years old. So all of the experience and the success he had from age 28 to 44, he is still fairly young by front office standards, and he is available. And so all I'm saying is, listen, the Twins made some splash moves before the season. They made some splashes at the deadline. If with all of the things that this front office is trying to do, if they can't make the playoffs this year, and according to ESPN.com right now, they have only a 42% chance to make the playoffs, 2 straight losses over the weekend, I would look long and hard under the hood at who's running my organization. And if a guy like John Daniels is out there and wants to jump back into a president of baseball ops job, I think you owe it to your franchise and to your fans to take a look. That's all I'm saying.
That's incredible. I didn't know he was only 44 years old. So he took over that team when he was 28, you said? Because like that is a long time to be that damn good. And yes, I think the Raiders definitely win a World Series if Nelson Cruz does not fumble that ball and David Freese then becomes a hero. I mean, actually, I kind of think about that. Like if Nelson Cruz makes that catch, David Freese does not come the lore that he is. And David Freese was a solid player, but certainly not a Hall of Fame player. But he will always be remembered for that World Series run with St. Louis. But yeah, I would definitely take a look here. Like if they fumble away this opportunity to make the playoffs after essentially being in first place for more than 50% of the season, this would be a gigantic disappointment. And I think you do have to do some type of self-evaluation at that point. You have to look at other resources that potentially could help you and things internally that are maybe holding you back.
Yep, and I'm not I don't just call for jobs on this show, and I've never been one to just fire someone for the sake of firing someone. But at some point, if there's a better option out there, someone with a proven track record, highly regarded, and you're not getting the results for 2 straight years. I mean, the Twins after 2019, the Bomba Squad, and even 2020 in the pandemic shortened season when they were a first place team in the 60 games or whatever they played. Sano was in his prime. Yep. Kepler was in his prime. Barrios was in his prime at the time before they traded him. They had a couple really good relievers, some other young players coming up. If you would have said, hey, this team's actually reached its peak already and it's going to come down the other side of the hill. Now, again, they can get hot again and they can make the playoffs and make some noise this year. I want to let this play out for 2 months and see what happens. But if they miss the playoffs after what happened last year, I don't know how you can't take a look under the hood with a guy like that sitting out there.
Yeah, I think that's important to do. My first statement on this Twins team, and after watching some games this weekend and just kind of surveying the landscape over the last, I want to say for the most part, the last month, my statement is I'm waiting for a C4 moment. So Carlos Correa, right, I feel like has now kind of gone under the microscope of like, yeah, $35 million for a player who's been good, but not necessarily great.
Yeah.
And has lacked some clutch moments. Even this year, Carlos Correa with runners in scoring position, hitting just 227, not a single home run.
Yeah, Buxton's like 125, 145 or something too. They've both been bad.
And it's tough to, look too much into these stats when it's a smaller sample size, right? Like it can be tough. But I mean, 75 at-bats for Carlos Correa with runners in scoring position and 0 home runs to show for it is pretty brutal. Now, I've defended him, I think, even last week when we did Twin statements that, hey, it's the 84 playoff games for a guy who really isn't even 28 years old that's going to be, so valuable for this team. Well, if you don't get to the playoffs, all that experience is going to be for naught. And I still think there is a moment here for Carlos Correa, right? Hey, if he delivers a bomb in a game-clinching moment to reach the playoffs or even in the postseason, I think most of this will be somewhat forgiven for, hey, he kind of lacked some clutch moments during the regular season. I'm waiting for a C4 moment that could potentially come in the playoffs for them, and the signing was still 100% worth it. I actually do think we're getting closer to him potentially staying with the Twins than we were maybe 3 or 4 months ago, because the shortstop market is so saturated this year. He's not having the year maybe he envisioned. He's still worth it. And I'm thankful for him, because I would have not renewed my season tickets and got season tickets in the first place if it wasn't for Carlos Correa. But I'm waiting for a C4 moment. I want to see him too, just like other fans have been asking for him to come through in the clutch. He had moments this weekend he didn't come through. Waiting for that big moment from Carlos Correa.
He's had a couple weird seasons in his career too, where he just kind of drops off. Like last year, he was incredible. In fact, he was worth 6 wins above replacement last year. Best offensive season he's had. Scored over 100 runs, OPS near a career high. But then, like 2018, he just hit 239 with a 405 slugging percentage and was just kind of a league average offensive player. The pandemic season in 2020, no power. So he's had a couple seasons like this, and this is definitely one of them where his bat just kind of disappears for stretches. And I'll throw Byron Buxton in here, too. Largely, these guys have been positive value for the Twins, but Byron Buxton with runners in scoring position this year, he's batting 145 with a 625 OPS. Just atrocious.
That's bad.
A lot of strikeouts, too. So with the bases empty, his OPS jumps 225 points. So he's got to be better in these situations, too. And it's going to be up. I think this offense that just cannot get clicking right now. I'm sorry, I can't look down the line. I mean, it's got to be Luis Arraez. It's got to be Carlos Correa. It's got to be Byron Buxton. I can't really look beyond that too far. Gio Urshela, contribute how you can. Gary Sanchez, contribute how you can. But those 3 guys are the ones that are going to have to sort of carry this thing. I'm going to go positive here for a second. All right, I'm sick of this Twins negativity. I will rip someone else before the end of this statement session, but to go positive for a second, Dylan Bundy and Crhis Archer have been pretty damn reliable as bottom of the rotation starting pitchers. So again, these were not guys that were signed to anchor your staff. They were just kind of signed to fill out your 4th and 5th spots, and maybe you make a swap at some point during the season. These 2 guys have the most and second most starts of any Twins pitchers. They've combined for 42 starts. Bundy has allowed 3 runs or fewer in 14 of his 21 starts. He's gone at least 5 innings in 15 of 21 starts. Pretty solid. Crhis Archer, in half of his starts, has allowed 1 run or fewer. Now, he's not going 8, so I'll grant you that. But in half of his starts, he has allowed 1 run or fewer this season.
Wow.
And I believe in 18 of his starts, he has allowed, I think it's 2 runs or fewer. He's not, again, he's not facing a lineup the 3rd time through the order, but
yeah,
I think I think we should all be pretty happy with what Dylan Bundy and Crhis Archer have given the Twins at the bottom of the rotation.
Yeah, and Judd's been on the Dylan Bundy train and whatnot, but when you break it down like that, where it's, hey, these are your 4th and 5th starters. You can have a lot worse options on your 4th and 5th starters. The Twins have years of throwing out, at the time, Liam Hendricks could not get anybody out as a starter. I mean, he had an ERA near 6. Yep. Tyler Duffy eventually regressed super hard as a starter. Same situation. You can have some atrocious back-end rotation options. And you know what? If your back end is Crhis Archer, Dylan Bundy, I think you got to be pretty satisfied with that. They're not going to start game 1 or 2 of the playoffs. And in fact, you probably don't feel great if they have to start a playoff game for you unless you had a lead. But I think in general, when you look at who they are and what they're being asked to do from your back end rotation options, it's fine. It's fine. You don't have the Atlanta Braves. You're not going to have a legitimate, Hall of Fame rotation from 1 through 5 like they did in the 90s. Dylan Bundy and Crhis Archer are who they are, and I think they've delivered.
No, I will say I think after 6 years of this front office that was supposed to come in here and develop pitching like Cleveland and Tampa, right? They've plucked from Cleveland and Tampa. the fact that you even have to use Dylan Bundy and Crhis Archer to fill out 40% of your rotation is problematic, and so it's not ideal, but for the position that they're in, it could be worse.
I'll give you a positive one, too. My Twins statement is Jose Miranda is a bad man. Since June 1st, after Jose got off to a pretty rough start in his career, I think through the first month of the season he was called up in the month of May, he was hitting 169, OPS near 500, just not also playing very good defense. Looked like a butcher at first base. Judd was ready to option him out. Pat was ready to write him off too, reigning minor league player of the year. But since June 1st, Jose Miranda is slashing 322, 373, OPS near 900.
Yeah.
A solid guy who can draw some walks. He has 12 walks in those 61 games. Good pop. And has provided some decent defense on the corner positions for you. I don't know if he'll win Rookie of the Year, but man, I mean, if you really think about the guy who was the minor league player of the year last year with the St. Paul Saints and has come up here and kind of been a solid corner infielder for you and can get hot with his bat, that's all I can ask for here. And Jose Miranda has actually turned out to be a pretty damn good player. And I know we kind of floated his name around the trade deadline. If you really want to get the ace that you're looking for, it might cost you Jose Miranda. And by the way, if that conversation comes back up in the offseason, I'm still willing to have that conversation with the right capable pitcher. But Jose Miranda has turned himself into a pretty damn good player that's been very reliable for the Twins over the last 2.5 months.
Yeah, he's been like you said, their best hitter. He's been carrying the offense more than the guys who make a ton of money and are on these massive contracts. And yeah, I think it's probably a little early to crown him as a franchise cornerstone for the next 5 or 6 years. I don't know what position he plays ultimately. But he's hit at different levels in the minors, and people who've watched him, from age 19 all the way up have said he's just a really good natural hitter with instincts that have clearly translated after he looked totally out over his skis for the first 3 or 4 weeks in the majors. And he fixed it on the fly. I don't think they ever sent him down. He just they might have sent him down for like a day, and then he came back up.
They did they kept Royce Lewis. And then Royce Lewis tore his ACL, and I think he was back with the Twins like in a 36-hour time period. But yeah, he's been good, man.
And then it all clicked for him. Okay, I'm gonna rip someone here in just a second, but a shout out to our friends at Meadows who are helping provide an amazing golf experience for all of us this summer.
The Meadows at Mystic Lake, which is an award-winning 18-hole public golf course. We're getting close to fall golf, which is my favorite time of year to golf. And one of my favorite things too when I get to a round, especially when I'm done with it, is enjoying a nice cold one on the patio in the Meadows Bar and Grill. Their patio outside, one of the best in the world for it. It's a great course. It's a scenic course. You can book your tee times now. golfthemeadows.com to learn more. There's nothing worse. I golfed over the weekend and they didn't have the GPS on the carts. I don't know what I'm hitting. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at distance. I'm not good at a lot of things.
Just pull a 7-iron.
Yeah. It's the 8-iron for me. The 8-iron is the guy that I can use there, but at least the Meadows carts can tell me what I can use there. So book your tee time now. golfthemeadows.com to learn more.
Also, hello to our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company, helping us power these daily episodes of Mackey and Judd and Purple Daily, and helping power businesses with risk management tools and resources for over 100 years. At Federated, they believe face-to-face, eye-to-eye contact fosters long-term relationships built on trust, and that is the Federated way. So if you want to find out how Federated can help your business, go to federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. All right. You know who doesn't get criticized enough?
Who's that?
Max Kepler. Oh, we're not doing Buffoon of the Week quite yet.
Okay.
That's coming up too.
That's coming though.
But Max Kepler, in 2019, he received MVP votes.
Yeah.
During the Bomba Squad season. 36 home runs. It's like, wow, Max Kepler is emerging into the player that we all thought that he would become. And he signed the contract. So since 2019, 3 seasons, ages 27, 28, and 29. He's batting .220. Power has almost completely disappeared. We're talking about the prime of his career, and we've ripped Miguel Sano on this show plenty for the same drop-off in the same 3-year age range, 26, 27, 28, 27, 28, 29. These guys were supposed to be centerpieces for this lineup and organization. That is why you signed him to a contract extension, and he has come nowhere near the player that he was in 2019. So Max Kepler, my statement is, deserves to be criticized more.
Yeah, he was a guy in 2019 I really liked. I thought he blossomed into the player he was supposed to be. And yeah, MVP votes, man. I mean, when you think about that, he was one of the 20 to 25 best players in the American League. If you want to gauge the metrics just off that, he really was on that Bomba squad. And I don't know what has happened to his game over the last basically 2 years. I know he hits a lot of those pop-ups. He's got some decent pop, and he's pretty good. He's above average right fielder. I think his defense is pretty solid. But right now, his bat's unplayable. Like his spot he is unplayably bad offensively right now. Like you cannot afford to use him even towards the end of your lineup. He's been that bad. I think he's hitting like 150 since basically being activated off the COVID list or from his recent injury. He's been unplayably bad for the Twins.
Yeah. So I mean that's another guy that if he clicked at some point, this season looks a little different. You got maybe 2 or 3 extra wins if he goes back and becomes the player that he was in 2019. So anyhow, all right, that was my last Twin statement. Do you want to get to Buffoon of the Week here?
Yeah, let's do the Buffoon of the Week. I'm curious who this is.
Okay. All right. It's a collective group, the Buffoon of the Week. Every single week we highlight someone who deserves to be criticized. It is Major League Baseball, collectively.
Okay.
For telling us for a decade how impossible it would be to implement an electronic strike zone. I don't know if you saw this weekend, there was a clip from the Syracuse-Charlotte AAA game. I'm going to read you this excerpt from an MLB.com article. So again, this is state-run media here. MLB.com is writing this article. During a special MLB Network broadcast of the game between AAA Charlotte and Syracuse, 3 experimental minor league rules were put in place: a pitch clock, larger bases, and an automated ball strike challenge system. The pitch clock and its impact on the pace and game times has been the source of a lot of discussion, while the larger bases are more subtle. But the ABS, the automated ball strike challenge system, is worthy of our attention. Because while no plans are in place to use it at the major league level this year or next year, it has generated serious interest within the industry. They put a clip out on the official MLB Twitter page. So a pitcher throws a pitch. It's right on the borderline, kind of low outside. Umpire calls it a ball. At the 4-second mark of this video, the catcher raises his hand to say challenge, much like a tennis player would with that Hawkeye system. Umpire immediately points up to the booth. So within 13 seconds of the catcher raising his hand in the air, we had the result of the challenge. I think they're using the Hawkeye system that tennis uses. 13 seconds. And we had the correct call. The umpire had the incorrect call, and we overturned it. Wow. Now, tennis started using this system 15 years ago at Wimbledon. 15 years ago, 2007 at Wimbledon for tennis. And so why baseball has continued to say, adjusting for the height of batters or whatever. It's like we're taking pictures of galaxies far, far away now with these, telescopes. I think we can figure out how to adjust for Jose Altuve versus Carlos Correa. And so I found it fascinating that MLB was kind of putting this out there saying, oh, look, this is kind of cool. It's like, yeah, we know. We've known for 15 years, ever since tennis started doing it. Amazing.
I'm not sure if it's just like they don't want to hurt the umpire's feelings. And, that'd be a pretty integral change of the game to essentially remove the home plate umpire entirely. Like that would be a significant change.
There's a way to do it. So in this game, it was a challenge system. So the home plate umpire can still call, 95% of the game. And I don't know how many challenges you get, but let's say going into a game, you get a limited amount of challenges. You get
5.
You get 5. Yeah, each team gets 5. And so you can, and that in any given game, statistically, there's going to be like 20 or 30 incorrect calls. So you're going to be able to use them. And late in the game, you can this is the problem. I guess late in the game, you'd probably just save them and use them in a key at bat. You would just be using them. But the umpire, to keep the pace moving, the umpire could call 95% of the game. And then you could use the challenge system for the high leverage calls where, hey, the bases are loaded. It's the 8th inning. First pitch is a ball. Second pitch looked like it should have been a ball. It's a strike. It alters an at bat, right? But the fact that they busted this out kind of casually for a minor league game on MLB Network, and they're like, oh, look at this, pretty cool. Yeah, no, it's you could have done this 15 years ago, guys.
Yeah. It's pretty brutal. I umpired as a kid. I loved, or umpired as, I shouldn't say as a kid, umpired as a young adult and umpired a lot of Little League, and I loved it. I really did love umpiring Little League. I never wanted to make a huge career out of it going after or going above the Little League level, but there is just something like remarkable about home plate umpires and their egos and everything involved with that. And for them, I think now to get used to this, especially the minor league level where they're implementing this is really interesting. But yeah, like we can turn on our garage lights. We can open garage doors from our cell phones. Like we've been able to do that for a long time. Why can't we challenge a borderline curveball on the outside corner? And now that they're slowly getting there, that's great. But I'm curious how that gets implemented at the major league level in years to come.
Well, as far as, because you mentioned like hurting umpires' feelings or whatever, the game is so different now in that everyone watching at home has a 50, 60, 70 inch 4K definition TV. And we all can sort of see the K zone on the screen. If you're watching on Bally's or ESPN, they can put the K zone up whenever they want to. If you're watching, hell, on MLB.com, just watching the game cast, they've got all of the pitches coming into a strike zone. The only person that doesn't have access to that information is the one making the calls. So you're giving the viewers at home, you're giving all the fans on their phones, all of the players and coaches in the dugout with tablets, all of them have access to the K-Zone box, except the guy who's flipping a coin behind the plate, crouched down, sweating, 2.5 hours into his shift, and it's a 97-mile-an-hour slider with nasty movement, or a cutter or a two-seamer, and he's flipping a coin. You're actually hanging the umpires out to dry by not having this chance. Don't you think an umpire, you take away the most egotistical ones like Angel Hernandez and Joe West, in a key moment late in a playoff game, a World Series game, oh man, the count is 2-2, and that pitch right on the edge, and you're not really sure. Do you really want to be the one that makes that call, flipping a coin? Or would you rather there be a safety net of, okay, in case I'm wrong, I don't want to screw this whole game for everybody, I
mean, even it was Jim Joyce, right, on the Marno Galarraga. That would have been the perfect game for the Tigers like 12 years ago, and he felt awful about that. I mean, he was visible. I think he cried because he ruined that moment. He didn't let Galarraga have that type of moment. And to your point, I think, too, there's nothing wrong with asking for help. This is a bigger question in general, but there's nothing wrong with being like, hey, I know I'm paid to do this, but I need some help making this decision. And I think they'd be good for baseball. Robot umps, I'm curious if eventually it becomes like it gets to that level. But I think at least having the technology as a backup is good for the game. It'll just make life a lot easier.
So there's your buffoon of the week. It's Major League Baseball for just figuring out what we've all known for 15 years. That's right. And that is a Juddless and COVID-laden version of Mackie and Judd here today. Judd will keep you posted on his emergency appendectomy situation. My COVID situation is what it is, and we're grinding our way through the week here. So thanks for hanging out with us. Daily Minnesota sports entertainment, therapy, speculation, Mackie and Judd.